What if the only thing standing between a boy and total destruction was the fact that he literally cannot die? Because that's exactly the situation Kim Ji-oh has been living in for the past 10 years. Picture this, a 17-year-old kid living in back alleys, sharing scraps with stray dogs. No house, no family, no name that anyone around him cares about. And his body, well, his body looks like a walking skeleton. Hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, a frame so thin you'd swear he's half a person. But here's the thing about Kim Ji-oh that changes everything you're about to assume. He cannot die. Not from bullets, not from a hydraulic press, not from 10,000 volts of electricity. He just keeps coming back slower than you'd think, but he always comes back. In this world, a rare few are born with what's called a mutant heart, a special organ that bends the rules of what a human body should be able to do. Some people can control ice, some can shape metal, some can turn their skin to solid stone. And Kim Ji-oh was born with something the scientific community would do anything to get their hands on: the resurrection heart. The ability that makes him completely, biologically, stubbornly immortal. Sounds like a gift, right? At age 7, the people who discovered this gift locked Ji-oh in a laboratory. And for the next 10 years they ran every experiment a human being should never have to survive. Every morning, the same routine. Injections, organ removal, physical destruction, documentation, rinse and repeat, because he always healed, always woke up, always gave them more data. There was a time he wanted to die so badly he reached for a live electrical wire. He grabbed it, took out 2 guards with the discharge, and died right there on the spot. Except of course he woke back up, because the one thing his ability has never given him is an exit. 3 years ago Ji-oh finally escaped. He's been running ever since, staying off the radar, living with stray dogs in alleys. His body barely heals without enough food, so the skeleton look isn't a style choice. It's what happens when an immortal person is also starving. This is where the story actually begins. One evening a girl walks into an alley to drop off food for the stray dogs. 3 men notice her almost immediately. They start moving in with clear, ugly intentions. That's when Ji-oh steps out of the shadows. The moment those men see his face, the hollow eyes, the stretched skin, the skeletal frame, they bolt. Full sprint, no question. The girl panics too. She runs, but she stops a few feet away, turns around and thinks it through. This person just saved her. Running is the wrong move. So she walks back, thanks him, tells him what she brought is better than dog food, and starts petting the animals like nothing happened. Ji-oh, who has only ever been stared at like a monster or strapped out to a table like a specimen, just stands there. And for the first time in a decade, something in his chest does something unexpected. His heart beats hard. Not from fear, not from pain. From something warm and completely new, and he doesn't even have a name for it yet. The girl's name is Hiji Song. She's terrified by everything Ji-oh tells her about his past, but she doesn't pull back. Instead, she tells him she has a way to help him blend in so people stop being scared. She brings him new clothes, she even does his makeup, promises to come back the next day. And that night Ji-oh makes a decision. The lab has been hunting him for 3 years. Getting close to him puts Hiji in the crosshairs. So he runs as far and as fast as he can manage. The next morning, one of the stray dogs has followed him without him knowing. And Hiji is already there too exhausted, having searched for hours, holding food for both him and the animals. When Ji-oh eats the food she brought, something wild happens. His arm, the one that had been missing for days, starts growing back at visible speed. Hiji sees it. Just asks if this is normal. Ji-oh explains that with regular food, full healing could take years. She immediately asks if there's a faster option. He considers telling her the truth, that drinking blood would accelerate everything dramatically. He decides to keep that detail to himself. Says the lab is the only place that can speed things up. Then Hiji says something that stops him cold. She says her older sister is a police officer, a mutant just like him, and she wants to take him to meet her. Ji-oh hesitates. He's spent 3 years learning that trust is a trap, but he watches Hiji talking to the dogs, and the dog named Potato drooling on his shoe, and something shifts. He promises the dog and himself that this time he won't run away like a coward. He'll stay, he'll try, and then a black car comes screaming around the corner and hits him dead on. Before he can even get his bearings, there are hands everywhere. Baseballs, rope, men tying him up in the back of a moving vehicle. A man lights a cigarette and says they finally found that cursed skeleton. They grabbed Hiji too. Ji-oh fights the ropes with his fingers, can't break free. He's furious not at the pain, but at the fact that Hiji is somewhere in this mess because of him. And then something changes the whole equation. The dogs come out of nowhere charging at the car, biting through the rope. They break him free. But then the men get out of the car with their bats. And Ji-oh has to watch as they beat the animals that just saved his life. He crawls toward the blood pooling on the ground. Because blood, even animal blood, feeds his resurrection heart. He absorbs it, and then he feels something shift in his body. Because Potato is dead. All of them are dead. Every single dog that chose him, in a world where no human would. 10 years in a lab turned into a toy. 3 years on the street turned into a monster, but these animals never saw any of that, they just saw him. All that blood animal human, everything on that ground rises toward him like a whirlpool. It covers him, it rebuilds him. Skin over bone, muscle over skeleton, a face where there wasn't one before. Kim Ji-oh stands up, and for the first time in years he looks like a person. One of the thugs charges. Ji-oh punches him so hard the man's face leaves a dent in a nearby car. Then Ji-oh picks up the body of his dog, tells the remaining men he knows the most painful way to die, and asks who wants to tell him where Hiji is. That's when the real story kicks into fifth gear. Because this boy who spent a decade as a lab experiment, who had no friends, no face, no future, is done surviving. He's about to start fighting back. The gang holding Hiji is camped in an abandoned lot full of wrecked cars. The boss grabs her hair and tells her if she wants to blame anyone, blame the skeleton she tried to help. Then his phone rings. It's his men calling to say they lost Ji-oh, and the phone hits the ground before they finish the sentence. The boss turns to Hiji and demands answers, but help is already on the way. A body flies past the doorway before the boss can finish his next sentence. Ji-oh is standing in the entrance, restored calm, and absolutely done with these people. The boss stare. Nobody recognizes the face. This isn't the skeleton anymore, this is something else entirely. One gangster grabs Ji-oh from behind, another hits him in the face. Ju just spits a little blood, punches back, the guy goes flying. He takes down every single person in that room one by one, without breaking stride. Then the boss pulls a gun, shoots Ji-oh in the shoulder. The other men grab every weapon the lab sent as payment and open fire simultaneously. Dozens of bullets all at once without pause. Ji-oh falls. His body tears his puncture, and then he starts dragging his fingers across the floor. The blood of the people who died in that lot, it responds to him, flows toward him, wraps around his body, restores him. He rises like something out of a nightmare, with bullets still going off around him. Every shot that lands is pain, but it's not worse than what they did to him in the lab. He tells them that straight to their faces. He takes a punch to the jaw, throws the guy through a wall, and keeps walking toward the boss. The boss threatens to shoot Hiji. Ji-oh hits him so hard the man goes through a concrete wall, then he hits him again, and again, thousands of times in seconds. By the time Ji-oh stands up, his knuckles are soaked and the room is silent. He walks over to Hiji and quietly, carefully hugs her, not to celebrate the fight, just because she's alive. Hiji hugs him back and tells him she's the one who should be grateful. The police show up, arrest the gang leader, write it up as an internal dispute. Hiji's sister on the phone handled the whole thing without Ji-oh and Hiji needing to go near a station. But standing outside looking at the dogs, Ji-oh cracks for the first time. He says each of their names out loud, apologizes. Hiji cries too and says it's her fault for not taking better care of them. Ji-oh bites his own finger, tries to bleed onto the bodies, hoping his blood might resurrect the animals. His wounds keep closing too fast, he forces it open again. Hiji begs him to stop. She tells him the dogs didn't trust people, but they trusted him, because they felt he was in the same place they were. And then from somewhere behind them a bark. Potato's puppy, small alive, walking right up to Ji-oh. Thus his hand, doesn't hesitate, doesn't flinch. Ji-oh doesn't know how to handle that, he just holds the puppy. Hiji sees the situation clearly. This boy needs a safe place, and the men from the lab are not ordinary criminals. She calls her sister. The plan they'd agreed on gets set in motion. Hiji takes Ji-oh and the puppy to her apartment in the center of the city. It's massive, it's warm. There are actual flowers on the table. Ji-oh walks through the door and immediately sees himself in a mirror. He stops. Normal cheeks, lips, an actual face, a face he has never fully seen before, because the lab never let him heal enough to grow one. He stands there staring, completely floored. Hiji notices and confesses something has been bothering her since he regenerated. He looks nothing like an older man. He looks like a teenager. She asks how old he is. Ji-oh counts on his fingers. Says Hiji's exactly her age. She wants to know why he let her call him sir the entire time. He tells her simply, being addressed like a human being at all already made him happy. That one line breaks something wide open in Hiji's chest. They agree to drop the formality, first names only. The puppy, renamed Fry short for Potato's kid, eats his food with total joy. Ji-oh sits down to his first real meal in years and says the food is delicious. Hiji apologizes and says she can't cook very well. He tells her it's the best thing he's tasted in many years, and he means it completely. Hiji gives him the couch, a thick blanket, and heads off to do homework. Ji-oh is left alone in the middle of the living room, just looking around. He stares at the flat-screen TV like it's a magic trick. So notices the flowers are different from the ones he saw at the lab. Sits on the couch and is genuinely surprised by how soft it is. When Fry chokes slightly on his food, Ji-oh sprints across the room in full panic. The dog just swallows and goes right back to eating, completely unbothered. Ji-oh smiles, lies down and tells Fry the place is cozy. He thinks this is what happiness is. But then the memories start. When he escaped the lab, he wasn't alone. There were other mutant kids with him. A girl who could build ice walls, a boy who controlled rocks, They covered each other, cleared paths, fought side by side to get out. In the end they got separated. And he never found out if they made it. He swears, lying on Hiji's couch in the middle of the night, that no one will take this from him. Not this warmth. Not these people. Not this tiny piece of normal life. Anyone who tries will answer to him. The next morning launches, with a scream echoing through the apartment. Fry is missing. Hiji leaves for school. Geo takes the puppy for a walk to burn off his own anxiety. But mid-stroll Fry vanishes off the leash. What follows is absolute chaos. Geo searches inside garbage cans. He checks under parked cars. He considers genuinely whether someone did something cruel to the dog. Then he spots Fry sitting calmly at the edge of a school soccer court, just watching kids play. Geo runs over, picks the dog up, gets the puppy's face into his hand. While he's there, he catches a TV playing in the background, news about mutants escaping from labs. And a reward announcement: report an unregistered mutant, collect serious money. Geo realizes fast that this world has very specific feelings about people like him. He grabs Fry and moves to leave, but Fry waddles toward a group of girls filming a dance video. One of the girls picks Fry up, calls him adorable, and starts filming. Geo steps out from behind a tree to get the dog back. The girls look at him up close and immediately decide he is very handsome. One of them, Minjung, asks for his social media. Geo doesn't know what Instagram is. He bows politely, says he doesn't have that kind of thing. Minjung is baffled. Her friends can't believe she just got rejected for the first time in their memory. From across the courtyard, a boy named Taegu has watched the whole thing. He decides this new kid is hitting on his girl using the dog, which is completely unacceptable. He grabs a soccer ball and kicks it with everything he has straight at Geo's face. Geo is looking at Fry. He lets the ball slam directly into his nose. Blood drips to the ground. Geo just turns to Taegu and calmly says to be more careful next time because the dog almost got hit. Taegu finds this infuriating. He wants to know who this kid is. He lures Geo to a back alley under the pretense of buying him bread as an apology. The moment they turn the corner, Taegu kicks him with everything he has. His whole crew shows up. They're going to teach this new kid a lesson. Geo tries to apologize and leave. The guys block his path. One of them tries to punch him. Geo sends the guy flying with a single arm. The crew can't process what just happened. The guy landed impossibly far. Taegu charges with everyone at once. Geo closes his eyes for a second. His mutant heart glows. He takes down each of them with almost no effort and then stops his fist 1 centimeter from Taegu's face. The impact alone pins Taegu against the wall without Geo even touching him. The crew runs. Taegu drops to his knees and begs. Shows Geo a picture of his dog to try and build sympathy. Geo immediately decides this guy seems nice. His stomach growls loudly. He mentions he got hungry from using a bit of strength. Taegu stares at him, completely baffled, and they end up in the school cafeteria together. While Geo shares his food with Fry, Taegu watches and can't figure out what he's dealing with. This boy is a monster physically, but he shares meals with a puppy and calls enemies nice. Taegu quietly calls his older brother Young Chul. His brother runs a crew. Tells Taegu to lure her outside. The kid is finished. What Taegu didn't plan on was spending the rest of the afternoon having the best time of his life. He takes Geo to an arcade. Geo has never seen one before. He wins a claw machine prize on his first try and celebrates like he just won a championship. They do karaoke. Geo only knows one song, a children's tune his mother taught him before age 7. He sings it with absolute conviction. Taegu asks what kind of life this guy has been living. By the end of the day, they've taken photos together. Taegu has completely forgotten about his brother. Young Chul calls. Reality heads back. Taegu meets the crew in an alley and tries to say Geo isn't a mutant after all. Young Chul doesn't buy it. He grabs Taegu by the hair. His crew starts beating him, then offers $500 if he gives up the mutant's location. There's a broker ready to buy. Taegu starts to understand this is actual human trafficking. Then a fist catches Young Chul's chain mid-swing. Geo is there. He came looking for Taegu when he took too long. One of the delinquents hits Geo hard in the head. The others pile on. Geo crouches, touches the blood on the ground, absorbs it through his fingers. He stands up, looks at them. Young Chul orders everyone to end his life. The whole crew charges with baseball bats. He takes a direct bat to the skull. Punches the guy in the back. The man shatters through a wall. One by one, every member of the crew hits the ground. Young Chul stabs Geo with a knife, then keeps stabbing. Geo catches the blade between his fingers and drives it into Young Chul's thigh. Then he grabs each remaining person at terrifying speed and makes sure none of them can run. He sets Young Chul and his crew in front of Taegu, who's still on the ground. Taegu looks up, says he's sorry for selling him out, punches himself in the face as an apology. Geo hands him a cloth for his bleeding nose. It's a puppy training pad. Taegu uses it anyway. Geo tells him it seems like he's not the only one who considers him a friend, so everything is fine. Taegu breaks down crying and hugs him. Then the police arrive. Taegu immediately tells them to raid the gang's hideouts. Young Chul tries to flip the script, claims Geo beat the whole group unprovoked, points out Geo doesn't have a scratch while everyone else is destroyed. calls him a mutant. The officers ask for Gio's registration, he doesn't have one. They start treating him like a threat. Then Hiji steps forward, holds out her phone, and asks the officers to take the call. On the other end, Superintendent Hyun from the mutant department. The officer snaps to attention, and the whole situation flips in about 30 seconds. Gio is released, the gang gets arrested. Taegu points them all out with visible satisfaction. Afterward, Gio asks Hiji how she knew to show up. She says she saw him surrounded by strange guys near the school and followed. Taegu immediately develops a massive crush on her and is visibly jealous of Gio's luck. Gio questions young Chul about who sent him, not the lab, just a local broker. He says he wants to find that broker. Hiji immediately objects and says it's far too dangerous. Gio explains, brokers traffic mutants. That means brokers might know where his friends are. Because on the day he escaped the lab, he wasn't alone. There were friends. A class held inside the lab, kids used as experiments, given basic education once in a while. A girl who froze things, a boy who cut through walls, others. They all got separated when the soldiers came. Gio has never stopped wondering if they made it out. Taegu remembers the phone he lifted off young Chul. The broker's number is in there. Meeting time 7 that evening. Gio says they're going now. In another part of the city the same evening, a hooded man is dismantling an entire gang in a warehouse. He moves like water. Every knife thrown at him gets redirected. He materializes blades from his own hands. He tells the gang boss that if you swing a knife like that, you'll never cut anything worth cutting. They all fall. The gang boss pulls a gun, his revolver gets sliced clean in half. The hooded man says his name is Lee Chaewon, bearer of the sword heart. He checks his phone. A new client wants to sell a product immediately. Gio reaches the alley at the meeting spot 30 minutes early. Watching from the shadows, he sees a man with a blade, thinks if he's just human this is easy. He charges at full speed, fist ready, and stops dead. Because the face in front of him is Chaewon's, his friend from the lab 10 years ago. The boy who cleared escape paths with his blades and covered everyone's back. Chaewon doesn't recognize the face. He draws his sword and slashes Joe down in an instant. Tendons severed. Gio hits the floor and can barely move. He tells Chaewon who he is, the skeleton from the lab. Chaewon tests the wounds close, asks more questions, then raises his blades and attacks again. He's not confused, he's deliberate, he's trying to kill Gio. Gio takes cut after cut, trying to understand why his friend is attacking to kill. He lets Chaewon's blade pierce his arm, uses it as bait to trap the sword, grabs Chaewon's hand and hurls him into a nearby structure. When the dust settles, Chaewon says he thought Gio was a weakling. Asks why he didn't fight back then if he could fight like this now. Gio asks what he's talking about. Chaewon brings up the escape. Says Gio abandoned everyone, says he saw him run. Gio tries to explain. But Chaewon is already charging again, this time with the entire metal framework of the building responding to his touch. He tells Gio he'll cut him to pieces so slowly it'll take forever to regenerate. Gio takes a slash to the abdomen. The fight spills outside. People notice the noise. Hiji and Taegu call the police. Gio gets back up and tells Chaewon he misunderstood everything. Chaewon breaks free and tells him to come to his hideout if he wants to talk more. Says a lot has happened since that day, and they have plenty to discuss. Gio follows and arrives at what appears to be a burger stand in a very well-lit public square. Chaewon is behind the counter, chopping onions dramatically, tossing ingredients in the air. A crowd of people are watching with delight. He hands out burgers and accepts compliments on his cheekbones. Gio stands there with his mouth open. This is the hideout. Chaewon sits down later and explains that he works here. He's the manager. Gio is a little thrown off. Chaewon points us that this means Gio is unemployed. The two do an awkward restart and Gio asks why Chaewon was at a broker meeting if he runs a diner. Chaewon explains, it's all an act. He pretends to be a broker to lure the people who traffic mutants and then he wipes them out. Gio stares at him, then lets out a long breath. Turns out, Chaewon has been doing this the whole time, by himself, at night after the dinner rush. Gio tells him if he ever needs backup, just ask. Chaewon says he actually does need help right now, one specific broker he can't take down alone. If they corner this man, he might be able to find out where the rest of their friends are. He extends his Joe bumps it. It's the same gesture Chaewon taught him years ago in the lab, the one that means absolute trust between friends. But things are not as simple as a fist bump. Later that night, Chaewon is alone in his apartment chopping carrots, and he is thinking about how to catch Kim Gio. Because while Gio was reconnecting with an old friend, Chaewon was reporting a find to a very different kind of boss. He told the lab he'd found the bearer of the resurrection heart. He confirmed he'd deliver Gio the next day, in exchange for any reward they had on offer. The real Chaewon, the broker, the actual one, is sitting in that apartment calmly. Luring Gio will be easy since the boy suspects nothing. The only problem is that Gio is far stronger than he remembered. Normal methods won't work. He needs a location full of metal. Then a girl in a wheelchair cheers from the next room. Her brother added extra potatoes to the curry just for her. Chaewon brings her the food, strokes her head, tells her to ask if she wants anything else. She asks him to eat with her. He says he can't tonight, has somewhere to be. The girl gets a little sad. He tells her to save some for him, and that's when the betrayal clicks into focus. On another floor, Hiji is peeling oranges and thinking about how exhausted Gio must be. She builds a mountain of fruit and strawberries, following an AI recipe for recovery food. Her sister Hyen arrives and makes a disgusted face at the dish. Gio says he's fine and just waiting for Chaewon to call. Hiji asks if he really missed his friend that much. He says yeah, a lot. He tells her about a memory from the lab, Chaewon finding him sitting alone, missing an arm from an experiment. Chaewon brushed it off, called it a minor detail. Then he touched the stump and forged a blade directly onto Gio's missing limb, said it looked incredible. Another friend, Yuana, yelled at them both for losing their minds. Chaewon bumped his fist and told Gio that's how real friends show trust. Gio didn't understand the gesture then, now he does. Then his phone rings. It's Chaewon begging for backup, says he was tracking lab operatives and things went sideways. Tells Gio to hurry. Gio tells Hiji to stay back, the place is too dangerous, and leaves immediately. He arrives at a metal warehouse, dead silent. He starts scanning. Every surface is iron pipes, floors, walls, even the ceiling supports. This is the exact kind of environment where Chaewon holds a complete tactical advantage. Gio realizes there is no way Chaewon was captured here. Then blades erupt from the floor. Dozens of them, shooting toward him from every direction. Gio dodges barely. Chaewon steps into view and thanks him for coming. Ji asks what he's doing. Chaewon says the situation is exactly what it looks like. He was the traps. He charged Gio with the lab on the phone. He's there to hand him back. Gio doesn't want to believe it. Grabs a metal plate to block a blade. The plate sprouts blades of its own. Chaewon controls everything in this building. Yells at him to wake up, to stop this, to talk. Chaewon says there's nothing to talk about. Keeps us hacking. The fight is brutal and close. Chaewon's sword skills are relentless, and Gio can only heal so fast. He threatens to go after Hiji and Taegu if Gio runs. That's when Gio shoves his hand into Chaewon's mouth. It's the inside, absorbs the blood directly. Tells Chaewon Hiji and Taegu are your friends too. I want to hear your reason. Because we're friends. Then Gio's heart starts beating faster, and his severed arm rebuilds itself from Chaewon's blood. He hits Chaewon once. The man feels 3 ribs crack through his iron-reinforced body. He hits him again. Chaewon flies into a scrap pile. Chaewon tries to flood the space with blade barrages. Gio dodges every single one on pure instinct. Chaewon realizes the regeneration isn't the only ability. Strength, reflexes, speed, all of it has grown beyond measure. Kim Gio is no longer the skeleton, he's something else. Chaewon, knowing he's losing, pushes past his limit. He absorbs the ambient metal until his veins and organs start destroying themselves. His sword heart explodes, thousands of blades erupting from every surface at once. He screams that no matter how fast Gio heals, he can't dodge this much steel at once. Gio charges straight through it. Blades slice him as he runs, but he doesn't stop. He drives his fist into Chaewon's stomach. Chaewon coughs up massive amounts of blood, feels his ribs turn to splint. Gio hits him again, doesn't stop. He tells Chaewon that the cuts don't hurt. He's endured worse every day for 10 years and could endure this all afternoon if he had to. What actually hurts is this. Knowing a friend of 10 years tried to send him back to hell. That is what's been slowly destroying him since the moment those blades first flew. He demands a reason. He still doesn't understand what those people could have promised Chaewon. Chaewon, face destroyed, barely opens his mouth and says, there is no point talking about it now. They can't be friends anymore, it's over. Gio grabs him by the collar and says, you do not get to decide that. You don't get to run from responsibility by declaring it finished. If you ever considered me a friend, you owe me a real reason. Memories flood in fighting, laughing, celebrating. 10 years of the only warmth that lab ever held. Chaewon says he's sorry, he has no reason. Then the military storms in from every entrance. Hundreds of armed soldiers surrounding both of them in seconds. Gio grabs a pipe and throws it at a soldier, then sprints for an exit. More men are waiting there. They've sealed every direction. He's trapped. For the first time tonight he genuinely panics. Then a hand reaches out and takes a soldier's radio. Hyen's voice comes through. Hiji's older sister, superintendent of the mutant task force. She's here and she's taking command of the operation. She walks calmly to Gio, looks him in the eye, tells him to stay calm because she came to help. Another officer tries to override her, says Gio is unregistered, demands detainment. Hyen snaps her fingers. Every weapon in the room shatters simultaneously. She snaps again. The protesting officer collapses in pain. She tells him this case connects directly to the Hermes laboratory. Nothing takes priority over that. The soldiers stand down. Chaewon gets arrested. Gio gets taken in for a statement. Hyen sits across from him, with an expression that's equal parts intense and excited. She tells him everything she's learned. All his friends who escaped were recaptured. The lab let them go on purpose just to hunt them back down and weaponize their despair. After recapturing them, they didn't just lock them up. They exploited their weaknesses, made promises, turned them into controlled assets. Then she asks, does he want to know why Chaewon did what he did? She brings in a witness. It's a girl in a wheelchair, Chaewon's sister Chaeon. Chaeon says it's all her fault. Her brother was never like this. When he escaped the lab 3 years ago, he rushed home and found their parents were already gone. She had been left alone, unable to care for herself due to injuries from an accident. Chaewon worked day and night without rest. But without a legal identity, the money was never enough. Every dollar went to her medical bills. He was barely holding it together. Then the lab came to the door. They didn't threaten him. They offered him a deal, a new identity, a steady income medical funding for his sister. In exchange, he just had to help with their work. He never spoke about it. But Chaeon always knew. It's her fault. She apologizes. Geo sits with this information. Hyeon makes one thing clear. Understanding his reasons doesn't erase what he tried to do. If everything had gone Chaewon's way, Geo would be back in that lab right now. She asks if Geo wants one last call before Chaewon is formally charged. Geo looks at the phone for a long time. Then he picks it up and dials. He tells Chaewon he heard the whole story. He understands what happened after the escape. He understands why he was sold out. But he wants to know why Chaewon never said anything. Silence on the other end. Geo snaps. He calls him a treacherous bastard, says staying quiet out of shame is pathetic. He tried to hand his own friend over to hell, and he didn't even have the decency to make up an excuse. He tells him to spend the rest of his life rotting in regret. Then, before hanging up, tells him the police will take care of Chaeon. Says he's trash but his sister is innocent. So pay for the crimes. Get out of there eventually. And make another burger because it was actually delicious. Chaewon puts the phone down. He thinks about every fight they had, every laugh, every moment he covered Geo's back in that lab. And he says quietly, thank you. Hiji asks Geo later if that was enough. She says if it were her, the revenge would have been 10 times worse. Geo says he thought his friends had escaped. That even with hard lives they'd be free and okay. He was wrong. They're still trapped, all of them. He asks for help to get them back. Hyeon smiles, sets her phone on the table and says she accepts. She asks if he'll be alright. Geo says it doesn't matter. He's not a weak skeleton anymore. He's going to save his friends and tear that laboratory apart. The plan takes shape over the next few days. Hyeon's first move, get Geo enrolled in Hiji's school as part of the mission. The cover story is that he's a transfer student from a nearby town. The real mission, blend in like a normal person and gather intelligence. This sounds simple until Geo is standing in a classroom with 30 teenagers all staring at him at once. He thinks they've already figured out his secret. He freezes completely. Then Taeg slams his hand on a desk and orders everyone to back off the new kid. Tells them Geo doesn't use social media. Quit video games. Is great at sports. And their childhood friends. Geo exhales. Then the teacher calls on him to answer a question about the Black Plague. He answers immediately and correctly. The teacher tries another, the Indian caste system. Correct again. Every single question correct, fast, calm. The class is stunned. The teacher leads a round of applause. Geo gets deeply embarrassed by the attention. Taegu asks him how he knew all that, because he's had Geo pegged as a slow guy this whole time. Geo says simply in the lab, the scientists let him borrow textbooks. He read them over and over. Thinking about going to school with other kids made him happy. So he memorized everything. Taegu starts silently crying. Gym class is a different situation entirely. Dodgeball Geo has never played before. He understands the rules in about 4 seconds and realizes he must use only half his actual strength. He spends the entire game muttering to himself about how to measure exactly half his power. Meanwhile, he dodges every single throw without moving his feet. The whole class stares. His teammates tell him to stop showing off. He gets confused and looks away for 1 second, takes ball directly to the face. Gets a bloody nose off. Tells everyone he's fine. By the end of his first day, Geo is walking home thinking about something. Nobody here is trying to control him. People say what they want. You can buy whatever you want in the cafeteria if you have money. It all still feels strange but genuine. He thanks Hiji and Taegu from the bottom of his heart for showing him this. Taegu immediately tells him to stop sappy. There's still plenty more to teach him. The school days pass. One afternoon walking home, Geo smells chicken skewers from a street vendor. He and Taegu and Hiji are mid-conversation when a strange noise comes from a nearby alley. A young man is hunched over in the gutter, absolutely starving. He says he burned too much power fighting gangsters all night. He has nothing left. He reaches for the flower bed nearby, trying to absorb nutrients from the soil through his mutant ability. Geo stops him, says that never works, he's tried. The young man insists he's not homeless. Then he catches the scent of the chicken skewers. Geo looks at him, sees something uncomfortably familiar. He offers the skewer. The man opens his mouth and eats the entire thing in one bite. Lets out thanks him warmly, pulls out a bag full of cash to repay. Before anyone can take it, 2 thieves on a motorcycle swipe the bag and bolt. Geo, Taegu and the young man take off sprinting after them. The thieves think they're safe. Nobody on foot catches a motorcycle. Then they glance back and see Gio closing the gap at impossible speed. He leaps for the bag, they dodge, he hits the ground, rolls back to his feet. The thieves panic and knock over a massive pile of bricks onto the road. The pile collapses directly onto Gio. Dust everywhere, bricks everywhere. Then Gio stands up from the rubble, complaining of a headache, and says he has to catch them. The crowd gathered around him stares in complete silence. Meanwhile, the young man, his name is Dong Wook Kong, also known as Kang, is already waiting at the destination. He felt the thieves' location through the ground. That's his ability, the stone heart. He hits the two thieves, takes back the bag, shuts down their entire hideout by pulling vibrations through the earth. Stone pillars erupt from the ground, the hideout caves in, nobody inside gets out quickly. Later at the police station, Hyen notices something in the paperwork about a young man with rock-based abilities, running an underground construction company, connected to the lab. She thinks he might be one of Gio's friends. Gio storms into her office demanding to know if she found someone. She hands him the file, shows him the photo. He immediately recognizes the man who ate his chicken skewer. His eyes were too damaged in the lab to recognize faces, but the ability gives it away. Rock the stone heart. That power belonged to one specific person, Dong Hyung Kong, his friend. Hyen confirms, the man is working with the lab, just Chae-win was. He runs Hodan Construction, a company that builds underground infrastructure, all secretly supporting lab facilities. Gio smiles. Hyen tells him the mission. He's going undercover at the construction site. His goal, find out what deal Dong has with the lab, and ideally flip him. She warns that Dong is more deeply involved than Chae-win was. He needs to stay sharp and question everything. Taegu is somehow roped into manual labor at the backup. Within one morning, Gio moves more cement single-handedly than the entire crew combined. Workers get impressed, then suspicious, then a live power cable snaps loose and whips through the air. It's about to hit one of the workers. Gio steps in front of it, takes the full electrical discharge without flinching. When someone manages to cut the power, Gio sits on the ground and quietly thinks, that was close. He almost revealed what he is. The workers now owe him a favor. They're warm, grateful, good people underneath the tough exterior. Then the real hostility shows up. The senior crew starts deliberately sabotaging Gio and Taegu's work assignments. Wrong instructions, contradictory orders, just to get them fired. When it escalates to arm wrestling, and Taegu gets his hand slammed repeatedly against a table, Gio has seen enough. He sits down across from the man who's been doing it, locks hands, slams the man's arm down in the blink of an eye. The bone snaps in half. The room explodes. The foreman calls everyone to rush Gio at once. Gio takes a hit to the back with a wooden club, doesn't even blink. Then Dong Hyung walks in. He slams the instigator's head against the wall, tells his crew to train instead of bully. He turns to Gio and says he's crossed the line too. Gio says his friend's hand is so swollen he can't hold anything, and he hit back exactly as hard so they'd never try it again. Dong tells him to stop talking back, says he's been lenient but Gio is testing him. Gio says he doesn't want a beating, but silence changes nothing. He can endure anything except watching a friend get hurt. Dong stops. Something in those words hits him hard. He remembers saying nearly the same this once, a long time ago in a very different room. He tells Gio he starts today, and he'll train him personally starting at 5 in the morning. The next day Dong takes Gio underground, beneath the construction site, an endless tunnel, sealed barrels, corporate secrets. Gio is told to move barrels without asking questions. He rips one open. The chemical smell is immediate and unmistakable. He dips his hand in, it disfigures his arm on contact. He knows this compound. They used it on him in the lab. This is proof. He needs to warn Hyen immediately. But on a monitor, Dong is watching everything. He saw the barrel get opened. He saw the arm disfigure and regenerate. The new worker is a mutant. The new worker is a mutant type. Don't hold back. Gio fights through the crew that comes for him one by one, fast, brutal, efficient. Then Dong walks in himself. His fist is covered in stone. His body becomes rock-reinforced armor. He wants to know what kind of heart this kid has. They fight through tunnels and concrete floors and steel beams. Gio keeps landing punches on stone skin, keeps cracking it slowly. Dong realizes he's dealing with someone who doesn't care if his own body tears apart. He's just hunting for the weak point. He goes past his own limit, swallows raw stone from the ground, destroying his own veins to load his heart to capacity. A massive boulder the size of a building floor erupts around Gio. It crushes him between solid rock walls from every side. The shockwave shakes the entire tunnel. Dong stands there panting, spitting blood from the exertion. Through the smoke and settling dust, a skeleton rises. Gio's flesh is still knitting itself back from nothing. He's bones held together by sheer will. Then the skeleton arm touches the floor. Every drop of blood in that tunnel begins moving toward him. It flows up the bone, rebuilds muscle, rebuilds skin. Gio charges forward, literally immortal in this moment, and drives his fist into Dong's abdomen. The giant goes into the wall. Cocks up, blood slides to the ground. He lifts his head and looks at the figure, walking toward him through the wreckage. A skeleton. A face he hasn't seen in years, the same way of talking, the same eyes. He says the name. Kim Geo. He asks why his friend hid his identity, why he infiltrated the company. Seo stops Final Punch mid-air. Later in the office, Dong serves coffee. The atmosphere is completely different. Geo absorbs a drop of blood from Dong's cut hand, borrowing a technique he learned from Hyen. He explains by absorbing blood, he can hear a person's heartbeat. He can tell when they're lying. He asks Dong directly why he's working for the lab after what they both went through. Dong asks what Geo's goal is. Geo says destroy the lab. Dong spits his coffee. Geo holds the line. Says he'll get his friends out and make sure the lab can never use them again. Dong refuses to help. Says it's impossible. Says their friends are all trapped in there. Geo tells him he's not asking for permission. He's taking the information he needs regardless. Dong grits his teeth and then hands over everything. Facility blueprints, subject code names, lists of missing people, transport routes, diaries. Everything he secretly gathered over years, waiting for the day someone would come who could actually use it. Geo notices something. When he mentioned attacking the lab, Dong's heartbeat spiked. Not from fear of the idea, from relief. He calls Dong out on it directly. Dong admits it. He's wanted to bring the lab down for years, just thought it was impossible. He says the network is massive, the facilities are buried underground, their influence reaches everywhere. Geo tells him he's not alone. He says the name Songhyeon, the leader of the mutant task force. Dong goes pale. He knows that name, everyone in the mutant world does. The woman even the lab avoids contact with. Considered the most powerful mutant alive. If she's backing this, maybe it's actually possible. Dong shakes Geo's hand. He's in. Hyen meets with Dong officially and confirms what she already knows about Hodan construction. She offers him the same deal, cooperate, and his past gets set aside. The first priority Dong gives her, rescue Lim Naran, their friend from the lab, a girl with a rapid healing ability and thorns that grow from her body on reflex. Geo remembers her as cheerful and warm. Dong remembers her as cold and rude. They argue about this for a solid 2 minutes before Hyen cuts them off. She says either way, rescuing another friend weakens the lab's hold on its assets. The plan is an ambush on a transport convoy on Silver White Road. Police block the neighboring roads. Communications get jammed. No reinforcements get through. Geo leads the strike. He leaps from altitude directly onto the convoy truck. Dong raises stone walls from the road, stopping every vehicle cold. Geo tears the armored door off the truck with his bare fingers, shattering from the pressure and regenerating mid-pull. Inside, not Lim Naran, a decoy. The lab swapped the transport the real location, a temporary detention facility nearby. They adapt. Geo goes for the building. Dong draws fire. Inside, Geo fights through the facility's internal security team. He gets hit. Gets back up. Gets hit again. Keeps moving. Harpoons trailing electrical current nearly take him down. He grabs the wires before they reach Dong, takes the full discharge himself. Then he drags the officers along by their own cables and throws them away. He finds Lim Naran in a holding room. She's unconscious but stable. But as he leans in to wake her, chains shoot from both his sides. Supervisor Han Ki-cheol, the man who ran the most brutal experiments, Geo survived. He wraps chains around Geo's throat and says today is his lucky day, 2 test subjects in one place. The chains are cold and tight, and the moment they touch his skin, Geo is 7 years old again in that lab. Han Ki-cheol recognizes the stillness. Notes that this isn't fear of a stranger. This is something else entirely. He asks if he's run experiments on him before. That's when Geo seizes the opening. He drives a straight punch directly into Han Ki-cheol's face with everything he has. The chains shatter, the scientist goes flying, and then the real fight begins. Geo doesn't just remember the pain from all those experiments. He remembers every pattern, every range limit, every weak point in the Shin system, because he spent 10 years as the test subject, learning the weapon from the inside. He knows chains hold under direct tension but snap under lateral force. He knows the effective range is just under 2 meters, before redirection becomes impossible. He knows there's a master chain. If you stop it, the entire system collapses. Han Ki-cheol fights at maximum capacity and cannot land a definitive blow. Every chain tactic he's hidden from test subjects for years, Geo already knows all of it. Anstius goes for the override move, ingesting iron to amplify his own power past safe lipsets. Chains multiply, fill the space, make evasion geometrically impossible. Geo grabs the master chain with both hands, the rest freeze instantly. Han Ki-cheol tries to generate new chains from his palms. Nothing comes out. He's empty. Geo hits him, tells him you are just a researcher, I am not a test subject. He beats him until Han Ki-cheol tries to bluffs, says killing him means losing the information about the other friends. Geo pulls blood from the man's mouth, listens to his heartbeat. Half of that was a lie. He finds the memory card hidden inside the researcher's badge, the one that holds all the research data. Han Ki-cheol panics completely. That card is everything, the only thing the lab can't replace. Before he can release a final chain attack, thorns burst through every surface around him. Lim Naran is awake. She pins the scientist from floor to ceiling and tells him she's been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Geo grabs her arm before she kills him, says they need him alive for information, looks at the skull mask, asks suspiciously if his name is Kim Geo. She says her Kim Geo was terrified of Han Kaicheol, says this can't be him. He tells her in the past he really was weak and immature. He calls her by name. She stares at him. Geo gets on the radio, tells he and the researcher secured, the data is recovered, and Lim Narin is alive. Hyen's voice comes back steady, the road will be cleared, get out now. Dong limps back to Geo's position, the soldiers are tied, the facility is empty. Han Kaicheol is restrained, furious, and completely aware that his research empire just got stripped down to nothing. Outside, for the first time in years, 3 people who survived the same laboratory stand together under open sky. Geo, Dong, and Lim Narin alive, unregistered, and no longer running. The lab still exists. There are more friends still inside. The fight is nowhere near over. But tonight, the boy who spent 10 years being told his only purpose was to survive their experiments drew a different conclusion. He is not their test subject, he never was. He is the nightmare they built, coming back to tear down every wall they ever put between him and the people he loves.